So have you ever wondered what could happen if you don't pay your debts? Well, at first, the effects may seem pretty clear-cut. Your creditor may report your past due debt to the credit bureaus, leaving a mark on your credit report and impacting your credit score. If you continue to be late with payments, your creditor could label your loan as being bad and sell it to a debt collection company. The fear of incoming calls, letters, texts, and the looming threat of legal action can follow from there. But it's important to note that this terror is not forever. There is something called statute of limitations, also known as SOL, and that sets a deadline for consumer debts, and it really restricts how long collectors can come after you, can sue you. This applies to consumer debts. So your best course of action when you're interacting with a creditor or a debt collector can be determined by being aware of the timeframes that come with your state's statute of limitations on debt collections. So what is the statute of limitations on debt? The period of time during which collection agencies can legally file a lawsuit against you to collect a debt is known as the statute of limitations. So these time periods can range from 3 years to 10 years and really depends on the state. However, once the statute of limitations has run out, the debt does not go away. You're still obligated to pay it back in full if you owe it. Additionally, this can imply that debt collectors can still call, email, or write to you. So, how does it work? Well, once the statute of limitations has passed, your debt is considered time barred. Due to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, debt collectors are not allowed to file lawsuits against consumers or make threats to do so. So, time barred debts can continue to appear on your credit report up until the credit reporting deadline. Most delinquent debts appear on your credit report for a maximum of 7 years, and this is determined by the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now, the debt's statute of limitations is unaffected by it. The average debt has that 7 year credit reporting window. The delinquent charge will still be visible to creditors if your credit limit has passed the debt's statute of limitations, and that could still impact and hurt your credit score. So let's talk about the types of debt in which statute of limitation groups debt into. So you have oral agreements, written contracts, promissory notes, and open ended accounts. So, oral agreements are loans that are issued verbally with no written contracts. These can be really hard to prove in court, but they can be proven with enough evidence. Then you have written contracts. These are debts that are written and signed between you and the lender. These contracts must contain terms and conditions of the loan. Promissory notes are similar to written contracts, but include more specific details that you, as the borrower, promise to uphold. These can include monthly payment amounts, interest rates, and lengths of the loan. Then there's open ended accounts. These are loans with a revolving balance that you can borrow from and you repay over and over. This typically includes credit card debt and lines of credit with lenders. Now, believe it or not, there are some types of loans that do not have a statute of limitations. These include federal student loans, some private loans, child support in some states, tickets, and income taxes. So, how long can a debt collector legally pursue old debt? Well, the statute of limitations for your debt is going to vary depending on what category it falls under and your state's legal system where you were sued or where the debt was incurred. The system is frequently manipulated by debt collection companies, unfortunately. So, if you recently moved to a state with a longer statute of limitations, debt collectors may try to sue you and cite that state's statute of limitations as a defense. So, to avoid this, you really want to make sure you're familiar with the statute of limitation regulations in your state as well as the state that the debt originated in. Now, the statute of limitations protects you from a debt collector filing a lawsuit to recover that debt. Again, it is the maximum period during which a collector can pursue legal options against you if you owe a debt. Every state has different laws that set out this time period. You just have to do your research. It starts from the date you missed your minimum payment. If a collector sues you within that time frame, guess what? The statute of limitations stops. So collectors will sometimes still sue outside of the statute of limitations, but it's your job to raise this defense at that point. So do you still owe a debt that has passed the statute of limitations? Yes, you technically still owe it, but the collector just can't sue you for it. So let me rephrase this. A collector can still sue you, but now you have what's called absolute defense, and You can countersue this against the debt collector for violating the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. But in general, collection activity is still allowed with certain disclaimers. So whether or not you want to pay a debt after the statute of limitations is it's a personal decision. Some do feel a moral obligation to pay, others do not. Just understand that a partial payment of a debt will revive it, also known as re-aging it, so as to restart the statute of limitations. My advice, please do not disregard a lawsuit if you get one. And here's another reason why. A judge may not be aware that a debt collector is filing a lawsuit after the statute of limitations has technically passed. I've seen this happen. You want to appear in court for this very reason. If you don't show up, a default judgment can be rendered against you, and that can result in your wages being garnished. Even if a collector doesn't sue you or is no longer able to sue you due to the debt's age, please keep in mind that most debt has that reporting age on your credit report of up to 7 years. So here are some things that restarts the statute of limitations clock on debt. So when you owe a creditor or a debt collection agency a certain amount of money, you can unknowingly restart the statute of limitations by making a payment. When you make a payment, it automatically restarts the statute of limitation clock in most states. This can happen even if you make a partial payment. Debt collectors may approach you with an offer of a small payment when they're aware that the statute of limitations on a specific debt is about to run out or it has run out. The majority of people, though, don't know this, and so they consent to such payments under the assumption that the creditor or the debt collection agency will forgive the outstanding debt. However, it's actually a ploy to get the customer to submit a payment, which starts that clock all over again. And when this happens, it gives them more time to get the money they claim you owe. So my advice would be not to make any payments to a debt account if you're not ready to go all the way to settle the debt. When you agree to pay, so you own a past debt if you agree to it. This acknowledgement is sufficient to reset the clock, and it gives the other party the right to pursue payment on the debt. So I would recommend not signing anything the other party asks you to because of this, especially without consulting an attorney. Now, collectors can only legally pursue you for a specific period of time in order to collect a debt. We've talked about this in this video. When they contact you, there are certain things you can say to stop the statute of limitations in many states. To prevent zombie debt that follows you forever, it's essential to know how to communicate with a debt collector. So, key takeaway here that I would recommend is that you do not ignore court summons or complaint, even if the statute of limitations has expired. Chances are that the collector filed a lawsuit within that statute of limitations. You definitely want to confirm if this is or is not the case. By ignoring a court summons, the court will pass a default judgment against you, and that gives the debt collector, who is the plaintiff, the legal authority to recover the debt, typically through wage garnishments. Don't make any payments to the debt account if you're not ready to go all the way in to settle the debt. Debt collectors and creditors usually trick consumers into restarting that statute of limitations clock, and that gives them more time to pursue the debt. So if you found this video to be helpful information, then please hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified for more content just like this that can help you in your credit repair journey. And don't forget to like this video.